We work hard so you can get hard. That's a lot.
Woo! I'm sure that was consensual.
It was fucking Carl!
New York Knicks offseason is what we're getting into today. We are breaking down the steps that it's going to take to get them back to the playoffs next year. Me and Dalton may not agree on everything that is going to get them there, but we're going to let you know both of our points here. So first off, I think the very first thing that they got to do in New York is free up some cap space. And how they're going to do that is they need to trade Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks somehow. If they can find a way to trade Julius Randle, great. But regardless, if you're trading Randle, I'm thinking you're going to be bringing some money back. So I think those are your three most likely trade candidates. And then on top of that, it's the same question the Knicks have been trying to answer for the last 20 years. Who's going to be their primary point guard? Who's going to be the guy to lead this offense? There's some interesting players out there. I really think that they should keep an eye on Jalen Brunson, Colin Sexton, and maybe even a trade for Tyler Hero. I think any of those guys would be great, and I think would really accelerate their rebuild here. And on top of that, I think they've got to re-sign Mitchell Robinson. Regardless of his injuries and his history, I think they have to do that. And so those are kind of my main things. Shedding those bad contracts the best you can. Bringing in a guy who's, healthy, can play you some big minutes at the point guard and can score, and then re-signing your guy, Mitchell Robinson. What do you think, Dalton? What do they got to do here to get over this hump?
You're right about the cap. I think it's going to be really hard to get off those caps. I mean, Fournier's contract alone, I like him as a player for his role, but you're not going to get off that contract. I don't think there's any way unless you're attaching a pick to it, and at that point, it's not worth it. Might as well hold on to him. I mean, they're set up good. I mean, we have a little different archetype on how to save the Knicks, and I have it's a huge shakeup for the team. I obviously am in the direction of firing Tibbs. I'll start there. I know we both agree on that. So they did well. They were 11th best defense this season, 10th in turnovers. Actually, they're 13th in 3-point efficiency. So that's kind of bright spots in what they were heading in. But 23rd in offense, 27th in field goal, free throws 26%, only 106 points a game. His offense does not translate in today's NBA, and that's kind of it. And I really think. He does deserve a spot in this league, but as a defensive assistant coach, and I think that's it.
I totally think. You go ahead. Sorry, I didn't.
Oh yeah, I think that there's tons of coaches that they should go into. I'll let you jump in. I think David Vanderpool, the Portland assistant, 7 years, 2 years, spent some years with the Wolves, now with Brooklyn. I think he's like, this is the spot. You give him a chance, you run with the new team. But that's on coaching. That's what I got. What do you think?
I would love to fire Tibbs. As a Timberwolves fan, that's always the first option, is to fire Tibbs if you've got him in your building. But don't you think if they were going to do that, they would have done it already? Day one in the offseason? Like, why wait at this point and let Darvin Ham and Kenny Atkinson and other good coaching candidates go?
Because they're the Knicks.
I just don't think they're gonna fire him at this point.
I think this season is what breaks it. Yeah, I think this is the season that breaks it. I think there was a lot of coach turnover anyway. I think. Yeah. I don't know.
He's probably a mid-season firing.
He could be a mid-season firing, and that, like, the guy, if you pull in an assistant, or especially someone like even Mike D'Antoni at this point, I don't think Mike D'Antoni is the right fit. I think you bring a young coach like a David Vanderpool, just like the Heat did with Eric Spoelstra, or even the Warriors did with Steve Kerr, where you look at him now and he's obviously a win coach now, but at the time of the hiring, he was first-time coach. I mean, it was like you bring him in and he builds the culture. So I think David Vanderpool's a culture hire, and you definitely need to change it there. But
yeah, so, I mean, I certainly think like a young coach is the way that they need to go. I don't think an old guy gonna get things sorted out here correctly. And you may remember they hired Mike D'Antoni a few years ago and it didn't work out. I think they fired him maybe after one season.
Yeah, that was Melo and Jeremy Lin, right?
Yeah, Melo was definitely there. I'm sure Lin was too.
Yeah,
long time ago.
But so all things considered, they're doing well in the draft pick. They have the top 10 protected Mavs pick next year, plus their own. They have the 11th pick this year. I think they are one of the biggest trade-up candidates, them and the Wizards. I think they have a lot that they could move up, and I'll certainly get into that too. I think they should give heavy thought into trading Randall, which I will also get into later. But Evan, I don't know. I think you have to hold on to him. I doubt anybody's going to trade for Fournier. So could they? You talked about it in our last Kings video about Donovan Mitchell. Could they be a suitor for Donovan Mitchell, the Knicks? They certainly have some assets. I don't know if this is a better package, but I think this is something they do. They have to totally shake up the team. That being said, I don't think Julius Randle is a bad contract. I don't think he's a bad player. I think, does he deserve his contract? No. Does he deserve a contract, a large contract? Probably. I do think so. I think there's a lot of teams that he could really help out on. So, this is my trade to the Jazz, and this is to shake up the whole team. This is in my mind, this is how you fix the Knicks. So, you're actually getting Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell in this trade. It's Kemba Walker, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, and a 2024 first-round pick for Donovan Mitchell. They get back a borderline all-star. Kemba Walker's kind of a throw-in, but you're also taking on Mike Conley's contract, which I imagine the Jazz would love to do because they're not getting a bad contract back. Kemba Walker's only an expiring 9-year contract. You get a Julius Randle, who's an asset. You get RJ Barrett, who's obviously an asset. He's the young star to build around. Then you get Obi Toppin, some prospect in there. That he really hasn't gotten his chance with the Knicks. I don't think he's gonna be that good of a player anyway, but I do think he'll be better off not on the Knicks. And then you get a first-round pick out of it. What do you think there?
I think more likely, it's going to take more first-round picks in the future to get a guy like Donovan Mitchell, and it's probably RJ Barrett and like 3 first-round picks to get him. But I think Donovan Mitchell maybe wants to go to New York. I know New York definitely wants him. They need a superstar, and they would give up whatever it takes to get him. If they're able to shed Randall in the process of making it happen, great. Otherwise, honestly, Mitchell and Randall could be a good pairing. You could just try and find a way to keep Randall around for next year. And if you trade for Mitchell, maybe you get the buy-in from Randall, and he's like, okay, this looks like it's going somewhere well. I want to see where this, at least starts out. And maybe you get him playing better this year. I think there's a couple of sides to the Julius Randle coin, depending on whether you believe a couple of years ago was an outlier for him or if that was the norm. Is he capable of putting up a great season again? I mean, he just posted terrible percentages this year, and his effort looked lackluster a lot of the times. And you wonder if he really wants to be in this New York spotlight, if he really wants to be around those fans in MSG Stadium. It's tough. I don't know if it's for him. Maybe he needs a change of scenery, but I think regardless, the Knicks need to keep around as much talent as they have. And Julius Randle is still like their most talented player. RJ Barrett hopefully can be that guy, but realistically right now, Randle is still their best player.
Yeah, you're right. And he could play next to Donovan. I do think the Jazz would love to have him. I think he's a perfect fit at the power forward spot next to Rudy Gobert. I think Rudy covers up so many defensive deficiencies that Randle had to do with the Knicks. A lot of times he was playing center, and that's just not right for him. So I think he would be a great fit for the Jazz, and I think that would make them. You're right. They'd probably have to put in a few more picks in this. And I like Randle, but I think what my move here is to do what the Timberwolves did 2 years ago and just kind of completely blow up the team, leave the very basic bones. And because I think this would be great. So you don't shed the contract, but Mike Conley's up in 2 years, 22, 24 million in those years. You get a decent veteran. He plays next to Donovan. I know he likes playing with Donovan. Donovan likes playing with him. Is he your point guard of the future? No, but it puts you in some place. And Donovan Mitchell, you do anything to raise your ceiling. You trade anything because he certainly will raise the ceiling of this team, and you can go work off that. Kemba Walker was just a whatever. He was a throw-in contract at the end of last season. RJ and Randall are obviously the points in that. But
yeah.
So also, aside from that trade, I do have them trading up, and it's giving Emmanuel Quickly and their 11th pick for the 4th pick. And that way, and with that 4th pick, I have them taking Keegan Murray, and he's your Julius Randle replacement. I mean, 23 points, almost 24 points in college, a steal and a half a game, block and a half a game. Guy's incredible. I think he's certainly almost 40% from college 3. I think he's a great fit. I think defensively he would be great to fit into whatever this new culture is. You do go out, re-sign Mitchell Robinson, but you're open to getting a new center, maybe a more healthy, more consistent center you can have on the floor, like an Andre Drummond. All things considered, he's not the best defensive player, but he's a good defensive player in my mind.
Yeah, no, that would be a great trade for them, but I just don't see why Sacramento Kings would want to drop back 7 spots just to get Emmanuel Quickly. Fifth. The Pistons. So the Pistons would drop back 7 for Quickly. I mean, maybe it's worth it, but I just don't know if Quickly is worth that. I mean, wouldn't you rather just, if you were Detroit, take Keegan Murray or take
Shaedon
Sharp?
I have them looking at some of those wings. We've talked about it, and I think if they fall to 11, a lot of those wings they're interested would still be there. Yeah, they'd probably have to put in maybe another first. But trading up to get Keegan Murray should be like their goal. And I think he could fall at 4. I think he could. I mean, fall to 5, maybe 4. I mean, he could be that 4th man. A lot of people are talking about. Shaedon Sharp could be that 4th guy. It depends what the Kings are into. It depends who drafts that 4th pick. I'm still not convinced it'll be the Kings, but I think that's what they're trying out for. But that way you get a starting lineup of Conley, Mitchell, Fournier, Murray, and Robinson. Is it a playoff team? No. Is it a great team to work off of? Yeah, I think that's better than what they would have. That's
they need to work on getting in top end talent in here, and whether that's through the draft with top picks or it's bringing in a star, they need to do that. And picking at 11 isn't going to get them much in terms of people that are going to help them immediately. And I don't know what they're going to get out there on free agency. It would be awesome if they could free up some space for a guy like Jalen Brunson or, Zach LaVine even. But who knows? That's really tough to do when you've got, some bad contracts that are going to be hard to get rid of.
Yeah, and I don't know how many suitors there are for the bad contracts, like Nerlens Noel, like you mentioned, Alec Burks maybe has, out of the 3, Evan Fournier, Nerlens Noel, and Alec Burks would probably have the most suitors, just because his position and his role is very transferable onto any team, really just a shooter or offense off the bench, rather than Nerlens Noel, who can't space the floor. You're just getting a defensive center, which some teams would need, but maybe not for 8-10 million. I forget how much he's making.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's making right around 10 million, which for your backup center, is a little steep. But maybe some teams who have some defensive challenges would still be into it, but likely I think a lot of those guys, they're looking to get traded somewhere with a pick attached to them. So they're going to like OKC or they're going to Detroit or something. But
right.
And how many picks do you want to trade away if you're the New York Knicks?
Yeah,
you just traded away a first-round pick last year for Cam Reddish.
Exactly, and I don't think the Knicks are in the position to trade any more picks away from their bad contracts. Usually that happens when the team is winning because they can afford. They know that pick. What they're not trading a high pick, they're trading some pick in the 20s. Usually when they attach a pick to a bad contract. But now, I mean, that's too risky now, and I wouldn't do that. a lot of these contracts I'd try to ride out, especially Evan Fournier's. I don't. You'd have to give up way too much to get rid of that contract. I think you might as well hold on to him and see what he can do. Try to get a new coach. How he gets a different role, much like with the Magic, where he's not just a off-ball catch and shoot guy, where you can have him have some creation as a third, fourth scoring option rather than just a catch and shoot guy, which it's proven that's not what he's good at. But
yeah,
I think we agree. Tibbs got to go.
I mean, I would love to see it happen. Think it's going to be a bit, but New York Knicks. They're a mess as always. Have one good season. First year with Tibbs, he comes in, wins Coach of the Year. Everybody's like, "Oh, why don't you like Thibodeau? He's awesome." And then now you're seeing the aftermath. The people getting tired of him. Randall wants to quit on him because he doesn't like playing for him. This is how it goes with a Thibodeau-run team. So, unfortunately, the Knicks continue to hire bad head coaches. It's been the story of them our entire lifetime. I remember they hired. The former Suns coach, I think lasted like a year. I forget, what is it, Hornacek?
Jeff Hornacek.
Yeah, Jeff Hornacek. Mike D'Antoni was a bad hire. David Fizdale was a terrible hire. God, I mean, who else? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of others, but the list just goes on and on. And that's the way it goes because it starts at the top. The owner, Dolan, he's terrible. Yep. He's one of the worst owners in all sports. Yeah, he's one of the worst owners in all sports. Like, the Knicks are, I think, maybe the most valuable franchise in the league, and like in terms of profit wise, and that's why he's able to not give a shit. Wants to maybe make the team better or says all the right things, but continues to make the wrong moves because he doesn't really give a shit.
Even their drafting hasn't been good. Their only bright spot drafting was at the time Emmanuel Quickley, who was a nice pickup, but he's kind of fizzled out. RJ Barrett, even though RJ's doing well, but as a third pick overall, there are better players in that draft that they should have drafted over RJ Barrett.
Yeah, they got kind of screwed in that draft. I feel like RJ Barrett was, up in that top echelon of players in the draft, and he was really on the tail end of those top guys. So it was kind of like, oh man, if we had one of the top two picks here, it would be amazing. We get either Zion or Ja, but instead you're just kind of settling for RJ after that.
Oh yeah. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, RJ was supposed to be the number 1 overall draft pick up until like Zion's really started doing well in Duke.
Oh yeah. RJ Barrett had a lot of hype on him. I mean, the 3 guys at Duke, him, Reddish, and Zion, all had a ton of hype around them in some regards, and well applied, I guess, because they all got drafted in the first round, 2 of them top 3 picks. So good for them. But now we're seeing in the NBA, it's like, there's better players. There's better players in the draft. It's tough to scout it right. I just feel like the Knicks, they don't scout well enough. Like, they rarely take the home run swing and get it right. I will say the one time recently they did take a home run swing and they got it right was Kristaps Porzingis. Like, when they drafted him, he was looking fantastic before he started getting injured. And then they were able to trade him away. And I mean, hell, I guess they kind of won that trade because he sucked in Dallas. I don't even remember if they got anything worth a damn back, but anything was fine, like, in terms of what they were getting out of Porzingis, because he was just turning into a cancer. And now we're seeing he's on the Washington Wizards and still doesn't give a shit.
Nope. They got 2 first-round picks out of it, I think. That was the main. And what's his name? Dennis Smith Jr., who was a bust. But, like, they could have gotten... I mean, I don't think DeAndre Hunter's better because of all of his injuries than RJ Barrett, but Tyler Herro, Darius Garland, these are guys they could have drafted instead of RJ Barrett. Granted, obviously hindsight is a lot harder, but
yeah, Garland would be great right now.
Garland would be great.
No, I mean, hindsight's always 2020, but I think we spent a lot of time on the Knicks. It's gonna end up being a long video. Hopefully, somebody ends up watching that one. But
did you guys like that video? I like that video. Just comment, like, and subscribe.